Good afternoon. East Grand Rapids residents, Brad Hunter, City Commissioner, coming to you for about the fourth time here with a video intending to update and inform those of you who can't come to City Commission meetings or have wanted just to take more information in regarding the process of PUD and concept plan approval for the Gaslight Investors project. All the commissioners, mayor, city staff, and consultants have put a lot of time and effort into this process. I'd like to just use this time during the video today to provide my thoughts on the process. This is information that has come in as the meetings have progressed, so it's come in very piecemeal. All the commissioners have, I think, would agree that it's hard to synthesize and put all the information together, much less our residents. It's not sizzling headline type material, so it doesn't show up easily and nicely in news. It's hard to explain and portray in public forums. So here's what a lot of residents have sort of asked. I have voted several times to not advance the proposal, and a lot of residents have just sort of been wondering, okay, why? What is the reason at this point in time that you're not comfortable in moving this forward? So I thought I'd compile this information. Many have asked, so here we go. I believe the process has been lacking. I believe good processes give way to good results and good end products, and quite the opposite for bad processes. Again, I'll stop short of saying this has been a bad process, but I guess the way I describe it is there's been some things that have been lacking, and feel that in certain ways the process could have been a lot better. So let's dive in, and I'll just go through a few of the points here. First and foremost, I really feel the process was a narrative set out from the very beginning, and that was to generate positive public opinion and commissioner approval and consensus based on a variety of things. So while I think that narrative is important in some situations, what we didn't have, which is what I felt going through this for my first time, that there'd be more resident input and community dialogue. The second kind of related part of the process to that first point is that there was a outwardly spoken narrative around the word trust. All right, and so city staff and consultants had made it pretty clear very early on that as industry experts, with most of us not being attorneys, people who do this for a living, these sorts of phrases are the ones that we should be trusting. So that word trust and a feeling of just kind of knowing that this isn't our day-to-day work should prevail, I guess, in the sense that that information should be heavily relied upon. Another sort of troubling aspect of this was that something that we heard from both mayor and a couple other city commissioners was that we were operating under the threat of a lawsuit. I finally implored to City Commission in August, to Attorney Huff during a commission meeting, to which he replied, we're under no current threat of lawsuit if we don't pass the concept plan as is, but we definitely had instances that many of us heard that being used out there in the community. And I really do think that set an unfortunate bias on the process. I don't know where it originated. I'm still trying to kind of dig to see if we can find information as to where that information came from. But operating under the threat of an unfounded lawsuit and that type of misinformation can really shape and guide people's opinions in ways that are not conducive to, again, a community-based, inclusive kind of a process that is more organic than feeling rather manipulated in that way. Another big part that I know I share a lot of consensus on with the community is that there's been little to no studies. As of yet, we're being asked to accept concept plan approval possibly as early as next week. The first, actually, it'd still be the last September meeting with no financial impact study, so no idea if this will raise taxes or not. No public safety study. We have an email, just an email saying, no, I don't think there will be any problems from our chief of police, chief of public safety. No in-depth traffic impact study, and no public school impact study either. So being good partners with the schools and them with us, we've asked repeatedly for not just enrollment, but also the logistics of the developments, the impact of the development on the logistics of that area, especially given the construction project that's starting mid next year for the high school. Got to move on because there's a lot here. The wording and document creation, I'm going to leave most of this to Commissioner Groff Blazak, but we have several documents over the past 22 years that are all coming into two documents in front of us that we're going to be asked to approve or deny. Big picture, my feeling is that as we dug into this and realizing that, again, there's a lot of complexity here, and this idea that we're supposed to be trusting the process, not any of us doing this specific job for a living, we should have probably had, in hindsight, a complete reboot, a complete reset, and a starting over with none of the documents from the past being included, except to say that this threat of building under the 2004 agreement was still there. That is true. The developer still has the 2004 agreement to be able to build on. So it really begged the question for us, if that's there and there needs to be something radically different or a major change to the current plan, then why are we trying to amend the plan into a new document rather than, if there is a new plan out there, actually write new documents? So again, Groff Blazak is further down the track on this than I am, and it's going to come up in subsequent meetings. So we are really excited, really just kind of waiting to see how the documents come together. But again, that process for us has been challenging. The developer, Mr. Weirda, with a great track record in building for the Western Michigan area and statewide, has been less than available, especially as the process has continued, culminating with not a full meeting of attendance for the early September meeting shortly after Labor Day. There was a lot of good public comment. There was a lot of really good commissioner questions and dialogue that we were hoping to have during that meeting, but unfortunately we weren't able to. So it just kind of added to that feeling of a one-way conversation rather than true dialogue. A couple other items to mention here on this process is that I made a motion late August, would have been the second August meeting, to amend our city policies to have any consultant working for the city for longer than period of 30 days. The number of days isn't important, but an extended period of time to not be operating on a private email domain. We do have a consultant, Mr. Paul LeBlanc, who's been working with the city on a separate email address. And I think for any corporation out there, any entity, that's just standard behavior for organizations to align themselves with. And why we haven't done it, I guess we won't know, because the motion that I made to adopt that provision into our city was denied 4-3 by our commission. We have, moving on, the dissent from people who wanted more information, who weren't at the time comfortable with what they saw from the projects, were very early characterized and demeaned as misinformed, negative, NIMBYs, not in my backyard if you're not familiar with that term, and that they were the outwardly vocal minority. to pin any person with an objection that way is a clear way of trying to diminish or cancel out what they're trying to say. To put this argument in a binary, do you want an open grass lot or do you want the development as is clearly not the type of process that our residents are used to, given their work and other community organizations that we belong to. Nobody obviously sees processes as that sort of binary choice. So it was very unfortunate for the folks who were attending regularly, and I would put those folks in the number of 90%, 80 to 90% against the current concept plan than for it. And I've asked fellow commissioners and city staff, where has been the vocal approval group? They literally haven't been there. So as commissioners, we're supposed to weigh in public comment. When public comment has been on the order of 80 to 90%, we need a better proposal. For them to be characterized in this way, I think was one of the bigger areas of dissatisfaction I have with the process. Finally, the standards. This was a document that was distributed. Hopefully a lot of you have seen it. It had 6 standards for approval. This is where I'm absolutely certain that I can't approve the proposal as is, because the standards are legally not met. Anybody who would like to have a conversation about that, I would love to. I've spoken with other commissioners and I've spoken with city staff. We're just not there, and it's sort of at an impasse. This was the document that we were told is the basis for approving or denying. We spent around 20 to 30 minutes in a meeting that I wasn't able to attend, which ended in a consensus vote. I'm not sure what a consensus vote is. That's more as if to say that something that doesn't exist. So we never took a vote on it. It's an incomplete conversation in the sense that we were not able to define character. We're not able to define impact. So the word impact is found several times throughout the document. I believe it's a measurable term. I believe it is meant to be therefore studied. And if you can't pass the proposal until it meets the standards, and if you can't define impact so that you can't meet the standards, the proposal just doesn't pass this stage of the process. The final word is adjacent. Adjacent is meant to have a connotation or a direct definition of a number of feet or yards or miles. Adjacent means some measurement. And again, that's a word in the zoning standards that has not been explained to us by our city staff. And I'll circle back to the word character for a minute that, as you know, is found several times throughout the document. The city attorney, John Huff, took a pass at defining character and instead demurred to our planning consultant, Paul LeBlanc, in creating a document around it. So as of now, we have no document defining character from our city. It goes back to this phrase, "Trust us." But also they were able to, city staff was able to tell me that what was not true was the document that the oppositional group, whose attorney put out a document on character, company letterhead. We were able to find out from our city staff that wasn't true, but we still don't have something definitively telling us what was. In conclusion, most of what should have been pre-approval has been pushed out till after, including the definition on character. So I don't know who in this community agrees that we should push a definition of character until after approving our concept plan, let alone a traffic study and a public school impact study. I feel we are all but locking ourselves into and making it certainly harder to adjust this plan after concept approval, which again could happen in the last meeting in September or the first meeting in October. So time is of the essence here. It does show to me and many others who have been watching closely how seemingly desperate the supporters have been to get this thing across the finish line. Possibly it shows and indicates the level to which the developer pressured the city, but it most certainly does indicate the level to which the residents have been unfortunately ineffective at giving these concerns into the minds of the commission members who are still in approval of this concept plan and making our concerns heard and felt. Thank you very much. Have a great day.